Absolute Power Task Force 7, Issue 2, John Layman writing with Max Raynor on art.
Mhm.
Now, I didn't read this, but wait, now to be fair, I was going to, and then Matt said he wanted to start as early as possible, and I hadn't read it yet. So I was like, you know what? And this does not mean that I'm not going to read the others after this, because they're all basically one-shots, and the teams on the other issues were more interesting looking. So this is not me dropping out of all these Task Force 7 issues. I just didn't read this one.
Gotcha.
So, take it
Yes.
away.
So this one is, did Max Raynor do the Doom Patrol book that we liked?
Oh.
Because it feels very in line with that. Because this features the Doom Patrol and the Aquaman characters teaming up to take on that Amazo. So so it starts off with Elastigirl waking up in a crater, basically of herself, with no powers, and we get a bit of a flashback that they showed up to help Tempest, and that Amazo attacked and stripped them of all their powers, except for, of course, Robot Man, who's essentially just a robot, a brain in a robotic shell. And they realize that their powers are gone when Negative Man kind of unwraps his hand, and we see a human hand there that he's able to, hold that form. He can't send out his negative self. And so they end up seeing the Waller's broadcast about, how she's sending out these Amazos to take out these threats. Tempest is like, well, if she's taking out the threats, well, that means Atlantis is going to be in the crosshairs. And the Doom Patrol are like, well, I don't think Waller would go after a sovereign nation like that.
Matt, just to answer your question.
Yes.
No, Max Raynor did not do
He did not?
Doom
Okay.
Patrol. He did do Batman and the Outsiders. He did a bunch of Tynion's Detective back in early Rebirth.
Okay.
But yeah.
Was it Burnham that did? Anyway.
Burnham, Burnham sounds right. That sounds right.
Okay.
Doom Patrol.
Burnham then. So this Amazo shows up in Atlantis, and it has all of the powers of the Doom Patrol. And so it is giant like Elastigirl, and then it is using Beast Girl's power to kind of rev up these sharks to attack the people there. And Aqualad Jackson ends up rounding up the King's Guard there to pull up a threat. And they have Aquaman already kind of wrapped up, and so this ends up becoming a fight with Tempest and the rest of them to end up inspiring the people of Atlantis to rise up against this Amazo, and to free the king, to free Arthur, who doesn't have any powers since his were taken. So he's in this box, and if it breaks open or whatever, he doesn't have his Atlantean powers. So Tempest ends up going through. He takes the lead on a lot of it, and they manage to put up enough of a fight that the Amazo kind of depletes itself and shrinks down to regular size. And the Doom Patrol ends up getting Aquaman out of there, because part of this is that if the Amazo just wants Aquaman and not the people of Atlantis, the best thing they can do is get him out of there. And so that's what they do. They end up taking the Doom Patrol, and they start heading up to the Fortress of Solitude, where they're going to rendezvous with I guess the rest of the heroes. The art is easily the best part of this. It does feel like just a tie-in where we're doing action as a driver for a lot of things. So Max Raynor's art with the gigantic Amazo is really cool. It almost feels like a kaiju underwater at times. And then all of the Atlantean architecture and all that stuff looks really good. The Doom Patrol, it's always good to see them, especially this version that we've grown fond of. And yeah, so that's the main part of it. So I'll give this, about a 6.5, because at the end of the day, it feels very disposable, and there's nothing technically wrong with it, but it just is, a filler type story. But there is a backup where we're getting more of Steve Trevor in Commander Steele.
Shit, that story's continuing in the backup.
Yes, yes, or Sergeant Steele. Is it Commander, Sergeant, whatever he is?
Sergeant Steele, I think.
Yeah, Sergeant Steele. So they're in the Supermax, and essentially he brings Steve down to this, prison where he has set him up a office, and he's like, "Well, this is going to only be a problem if you let it be, Trevor," and he wants him to. What does he say here? He gives him the assignment to work, knowing that Trevor's not going to do it, so it's essentially going to give him a reason to bring Trevor in line and essentially remove him from everything. And so Steele ends up backhanding him and knocking him out. And basically, he says at the end, I need a security detail to sub-basement 3. We have a new prisoner to transport to lockup. So Steve did what Steve was going to do, which was, not cooperate. And I feel like this is just a device to see who else is in lockup. We're going to get, Steve's, perspective there while the other heroes are out and about. He'll be in with the rest of the people that they're rounding up, which is curious too, considering that Steve doesn't have powers, yet they see him as a threat because of his connections to not only Diana, but the rest of the superheroes, and the U.S. government at that. So, this was a 2-3 page story at that. I don't know if it's fair to rate that, but yeah. So I guess the whole thing's about a 6.5.
Would you say it was better than last week's?
These are all running together now. I would put them at about even. So I wasn't here for that episode then, because I didn't really put a designated number to that one. Actually, I'd put this one a little bit more because I feel like I like the art in this one more. I think Rainer's art looked a little bit better. So. Yeah. At least we're moving upwards.
Yeah, it was 2 weeks. I just assumed it was last week, but yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. There was the Shazam characters.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, okay, I suppose the backups connecting is the one thing that makes this feel like an actual series as opposed to just a bunch of one shots. But we'll see how that goes in the coming weeks. But I'm definitely more interested in the regular issues of the books that are tying in and like the Origins miniseries.
I just. Not that, filler can still be enjoyable, but it just feels like, they're just telling the story, hey, this is what's going on in Atlantis. This is what was going on with the Shazam family. I don't know what the next one, what set of heroes that one's around, but it does feel like these are almost like the old style Brave and the Bold, where we're getting team-ups between 2 different sets of heroes, right, to see how they interact and whatnot. So, again, Doom Patrol, Aquaman, how often do you get to see those 2 worlds interact that often? So I guess it's cool for that.
Next one's the Bat family, by the looks of it on the cover.
We've never seen them interact before.